You're listening to the Preppy Podcast, and I'm your host, Patricia May Olson. I'll be interviewing the brands, businesses, and influencers who are keeping the modern preppy lifestyle alive. Each Tuesday, I'll bring you a new episode, but if you're craving more preppy, then shop the merch and listen to past episodes at thepreppypodcast.com, and be sure to follow at the Preppy Podcast and me, Patricia_May_Olson on Instagram. All right. So why don't you let everyone know who you are, where you live, and what you do?
Okay, great. So I'm Stacy Barros, and I am the owner and founder of etúHOME, and I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wonderful. And I had the pleasure of meeting Stacy actually in person a few weeks ago at Market. So after you guys listen to this podcast episode, there's going to be some more video content walking through the product that she's going to mention in this episode. So definitely go and check that out. But Stacy, I'd love to learn more about you kind of as a child. I think so much of who we become as adults kind of is reflected as who we were as children. So were you someone that was entrepreneurial or creative and crafty? What were you like as a kid?
Wow. Okay, so taking me way back. So I think, I suppose, as it pertains maybe to where I ended up, I came from a very entrepreneurial, creative family. My mother was quite ahead of her time as far as owning her own business. She had I grew up in a retail boutique store in a small town in North Carolina. My parents originally were from New York. I had a art dealer for an uncle who lived between kind of Palm Beach and New York City. So I was constantly exposed to the arts, to multiple levels of creativity. So I suppose art and drawing, sketching, painting, all of that was part of my growing up and being exposed to, we kind of, everywhere we went, there was a museum, we were there. So maybe that, I guess I didn't really share so much about my childhood, but it was influenced maybe by, members of my family. So.
Definitely. It sounds like, you appreciated, you grew up appreciating art and creativity, which I think then reflects so much of what you offer today because it's so unique, it's so creative. So I just always find that question interesting. But when it came time for college, then where and what did you end up studying? If you went to college or if you went a different path, kind of what was that like?
Sure. So I went to University of Georgia, which is kind of how I think I ended up in Atlanta, and I went for a journalism degree. So I was very, very focused on journalism, very focused. I wanted to be in advertising, and when I graduated college, I graduated and ended up on Macy's training program, which was going to be sort of my first job, sort of waiting until I got the dream job in the advertising agency. I had this dream of being an account executive. So back in the day. So, but anyway, I went on their training program, and now I'm a merchant. It was just in my blood. So.
Very cool. I feel like back in the day, like Macy's, Bloomingdale's, those big department stores where, where people dreamed of working. Even still, I love Bloomingdale's still to this day.
Yeah, yeah.
But wow, that sounds like such a cool way to start your career. So tell me a little bit then about that, like the start of your career, getting that foot in the door in that position, and then what did you do next, leading up to, owning your own business?
Right. Yeah. So it was federated. It was, as you said, the big name of the day. It was
Mhm.
like back then it was quite a coup to get on their training program. It was something that was quite coveted, and it was really a dive in. I mean, an amazing way to learn the business. I can't speak to what it's like now, but it really was something pretty powerful then. And I kind of went up through the ranks. And then I had an opportunity to join a British company, WH Smith. It's still one of the top, it's on every high street in London. And they bought an American company, and I was a buyer and merchandise manager for them for many, many years. So that's kind of was where my retail ended up. And then I went into the telecommunication field. I worked for a one of the big three telecoms to bring kind of to as their sort of retail industry expert,
Oh.
and worked on helping their key accounts understand and manage their retail efforts. So that was an interesting sort of loop into telecom.
That is really cool. I feel like I haven't had anyone on this podcast kind of go in that realm. So I love that because it sounds like it combined, your interest in where you wanted to be with what you had in your background then, and some experience. So that's cool.
Yeah, they were looking for supposedly a retail expert to teach, these like techie kind of people of the day, the industry, and so that was sort of my role. It was really a great place to be at the time. So.
Very cool. So then, what sort of led to creating your own business? I got to hear a little bit of this journey when we spoke at Market, but I'd love for you to share more of that with listeners today as to what led to the creation of your business as it is today. What was that like moment that you're like, I have this idea?
Okay, so well, it was an idea, but I was in maybe right place, right time.
Mhm.
My husband, we moved to Budapest, Hungary. He was transferred for work, and so living in Budapest and being an expat and not working for the first time in my whole life, really, I was fascinated with the country, and I was fascinated with, Hungary had been communist for 50 years, so it was pretty much shut down to the West. And I suppose, my merchant eyes were like, wow, there is so much here. There's a business, there's something. Like, I was fascinated with the look and feel of Budapest. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. Um, uh, Architecturally felt a lot like Paris. It's always a joke that Budapest is the Paris of the East, but Parisians would never call Budapest the Paris of the West. But it was just a beautiful, beautiful city, evolving, coming into its own as a democratic country. And I took a chance and started scouring and sourcing vintage and antique and found product, and ultimately, literally loaded and shipped a container, which arrived in my garage in Georgia. And that's really how it started.
I love that. It's so funny because that sort of sounds like Julie Ann Taylor's style. I interviewed her on the podcast probably a year or so ago, and she had a similar sort of situation where she ended up abroad because of her husband's job, and then she started a furniture company kind of based off of inspired by her travels where she was. But I also, what you mentioned there was that a right place, right time. And my motto, though, is that we create our own luck. So even though, there's a difference between being lucky and creating your own luck. And it sounds like you're one of those people too. Like, you see an opportunity and you create your own luck from it.
Oh, well, yeah, I think it was there, and it was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I literally went traveling like through the countryside with this lovely gentleman who spoke no English, and I speak no Hungarian. Now I know a bit, but I couldn't string a sentence together. I know my words, but my grammar is horrifying. And somehow we were able to figure it out, and we were able to, I was able to purchase and source, and it was, from old factories that had been shut down for 20, 30, 40 years to cellars and, farms and attics and little villages, just literally scouring product one by one by one until, sometimes we'd find, a great many. And it just I stored it, and then we brought it back and it started to sell. So the business, basically, that's how it evolved.
Yeah. So tell me then, so you're over there, you come back with this, huge shipping crate essentially of all these amazing found goods. So then how did you turn that into a business? Like, did you create a website selling this? Were you maybe just contacting people directly selling what you had purchased? Like, how did you, from idea to concept and business, turn it into something?
So very simply, very, very grassroots. Started out, I mean, literally, like I said, unloaded in my garage. My kids, we had our house here, so we were home for the summer. Um, I had my three kids helping me, and I started to source, some of the major vendors, and I did the New York gift show
Okay.
in a very, very tiny 10 by 10 booth. And in Atlanta at the time, the Atlanta Gift Show had a section called Europe's Finest, and it was only for European vendors that were trying to sell in America. So I was able to get into that. And through that, actually met with several major retailers who we actually still sell to today, and launched this whole concept of found objects. And so the word found is really an important word because antique has certain rules to it. It has to be over 100 years old. Vintage, what is that really? Is it somebody's old junk, or is it really something important and special, and has a history to it? So found was just this great word that we coined, and
Mhm.
it's quite used, many stores and retailers and companies use it today. So I love the term found object, and I think it implies it was something long ago. It belonged to someone. It had a story. It had a history. Whether it's a vintage dough bowl, like what family served their food from it, who ate from it, was it workers in the field, was it a big holiday event, what was the story behind it? And to me, that's what's heartwarming and fascinating, and that's what I don't know. I feel like found objects are what really make a house a home. They
Yep.
just lend so much credibility and layering and authenticism to it. So
For sure. There's definitely that element of warmth with those sorts of things. So, and a story, something to talk about, even if you don't know where it's from, originally necessarily when you buy it, but for your imagination to think who had it before and what they did with it. I love that. So I know you mentioned to me, a little bit about charcuterie boards when I was there at Market. And I think what my listeners probably know you for is your beautiful, colorful charcuterie board. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that product and how that came to be, and sort of what you have out there today with that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I do think that etúHOME was quite responsible for bringing the charcuterie board to the US. It was not something that people knew or understood. And of course, COVID also ramped that up because people were, spending a lot of time at home and serving and small parties and entertaining. But the board, a lot of people think it's a pizza board and they think it's Italian. Other people think it's French because the word charcuterie is obviously French. But the board is actually German, and it comes from Bavaria. And it was used for a specific, it's called a Flammkuchen, so a type of German pastry. And that's where the original boards came from. We initially sourced them out of Germany, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And every one we got, we sold. And we had a very well-known retailer, major brand, that was just selling them like crazy, and we could not get enough. I mean, I couldn't source or find enough fast enough. And so we partnered with a factory in Hungary that specialized in reclaimed wood, in old wood from the old turn of the century buildings. And so the way we were able to recreate the boards was to recreate them using the exact same sort of technology
Mm.
that the boards were originally made. So if you really buy a high-end charcuterie board, there's a specific way that it's made, and there's multiple slats that go in the
Mhm.
board. And I'm probably getting too detailed,
No,
but
I love it.
sort of the secret sauce. If you don't have the slats, insert it in the board, made of certain types of wood, and put in a specific way, your board will warp and it will not last forever, and it will end up in the landfill, which is definitely something we don't want to happen, because the whole idea of serveware and found objects and charcuterie or anything is pieces that should be generational, so that you can pass it on, so that they are properly made and can sustain, all sorts of wonderful use over time. So we now make these boards. We still source old found
Hmm.
boards, and I do get plenty of those. And when I do, I know exactly who to call and where to go to move those. But we make our charcuterie boards, and they're made from old beams, from turn of the century buildings. So it is true. They really are sustainable. When we say we're sustainable, we are. Um, and I think that's important because it was very difficult. You wanted the board to look and feel the same way it did originally. So using those materials helped lend credibility and to the look and feel, but also, to the aesthetic of the piece. So, and then we also, I guess, upped our game a little bit we made modern boards. We do lots of beautiful colors and bright, we from denim to sage to navy to we're most known for our white mod boards. And we threw the word mod in there because they're to me, they're preppy, they're clean,
Yeah.
they're classic, they have this sort of colorful, wonderful feel to them, and yet they're food safe. It's a plant-based, food safe wax that we finish our pieces with. So that's sort of in a nutshell, the evolution of
Yeah.
the charcuterie board.
I love it. And you guys do all different shapes too, like a pumpkin. I saw a Christmas tree shape too at market. So I just think what you guys are doing is so cool with those. Um, Now, talking about, the business as it is today now and what you have to offer, I'd love to hear a little bit about the growth and the change. And, now you even have, there's glassware objects. I got to see a bunch of holidays, some great linen and more fabric pieces. So for listeners who, for some reason, might not know about your brand, even though I feel like most of my listeners do, tell us about it today and kind of what you have to offer and how it's grown and changed.
Oh, sure. Okay. So, really, I like to think of the brand as elevating your everyday entertaining, or just elevating your everyday if it's just you. So, I think that the European mindset when it comes to food is really and family and enjoying, fresh, beautiful strawberries, or freshly made cheeses, or wonderful charcuterie. A lot of it's about the presentation, but a lot of it is also about meals are meant to be conversation versus time, and to truly enjoy that, a good, wonderful glass of wine, or a great, fresh tomato salad that with garnished with all the right herbs and flavorings, and wonderfully fresh ground salts or peppers. And so it's the whole concept of elevating your everyday has to also do with your tablescape, what you serve your food on, how you dress your table, how you serve what dishes do you use. So we're adding to the brand to help our customers, maybe come full circle. So do you have a cotton linen napkin that's made of natural fibers? Because if you do, your place setting looks nicer. It feels better in your hand. It actually helps if you drop food on yourself, because the linen and seltzer is the best way to clean a stain. So it's really getting back to basics and using all natural materials, and really trying to I guess expand or elevate the experience of just everyday dining and everyday entertaining. So we're adding elements to that.
I love that. It's elevating the everyday. I think, turning every day into an occasion or celebrating the little things is kind of something I live by too. So, your pieces are perfect for it. Now, in terms of business and being an entrepreneur, what's your favorite part about, having your own business, about what you do? And then what's the hardest part, the part that like you enjoy the least?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I suppose my favorite part is the ability to be creative and to, if it's not going to work and you just, your gut tells you that that's just not executing, it's not going to work, that I can immediately stop it, stop production, flip, change. The challenge with being creative is that sometimes you go all over the place, and you to be able to stop and focus and say no, I don't think that's going to execute, and just, it's my risk. I'm cutting the production line. I'm stopping everything. I'm changing the color midstream. That I have the I guess ability to do that, and only I can only blame me.
Yeah.
So and I'm probably my hardest critic, but I do love the ability to, or if you have a great idea and something sparks and you want to change it, or go for something, you can, and
Mhm.
that fuels me, to be able to do that quickly.
Yeah.
So small business entrepreneurial, you're able to do that versus a lot of the red tape that you would find in a greater, larger organization.
Yep. That makes total sense.
What do I dislike? You know what? Honestly, I really, I don't like to disappoint.
Mm.
I don't like to, and this isn't really a canned answer, but I really, really don't want to disappoint my customers. I don't want to disappoint, with a product. I do want it to be right. I do want it to be perfect. I do want it to meet my customers' expectations, whether it's, just a consumer buying off our website for the first time who's never touched and felt our product. I want them to be delighted and, surprised and maybe overly delighted. What they got was actually better than what they thought.
Mm.
So to disappoint, I feel like we failed. Even if it's, a delay, a shipping delay that's beyond our control, like, containers stuck in the middle of the ocean. I'm so sorry. We need an extension on our PO. I don't like to do that. And often I have to, because, I can't obviously do anything to move the ship faster. But I just don't like to disappoint. So maybe I would like to not be in that place.
That I feel you. It's hard, when you feel like you've disappointed someone, or even just taking things personally. Like put your heart into your business. So when you disappoint someone or something doesn't go, how you planned it, that's always hard. And I think it's hard not to take it to heart, for sure. What about a pinch me moment? You guys have gotten so much great press, worked with such great influencers. What's like something you're really proud of, or a pinch me moment?
Okay, so well, I think the first time that we were chosen for Oprah's favorite things, that
Mhm.
was really meaningful for me. We've been on there 3 times now,
Wow.
and I think, even going through the whole creative process with their team, how much they review product, how much time and effort and energy goes into being chosen for one of the 100 slots that they
Mhm.
have to offer. That was truly exciting, and honestly, every single time we've been on it, I've just been thrilled and overjoyed. So from a product perspective, that was really special for us. And then from another creative outlet, we have a store in Charleston, South Carolina, on King Street, and I love that store. I could move in myself and live there. But the House Beautiful editor, we were chosen as top 100 retailers in America,
Wow.
And that was really something because I am so very proud of that location and the aesthetic of it. And when you walk in, what you find, and listening to customers' reactions. They're quite overwhelmed when they walk in the store of the differences of the different product that they can find there and how it all sort of comes together, and it all works together. So there's not one piece that just is a standalone. Everything merchandises with everything else, and it's a true love of mine. It's kind of back to my roots, and I'm quite proud of that location and my staff, and my team that works there is really terrific. So I'm very
Yeah.
pleased about that.
No, that's amazing. Your store there is beautiful, which speaking of stores, where else do you have stores located for people listening who might want to pop in?
We just have the one location
Just the
in
one?
Charleston at the moment. We also have one in Europe in Budapest, but it's a
Oh,
it's a
cool.
much smaller spot. So
Okay. And so, I think brick and mortar is so hard and it scares a lot of people. So I'd love to hear kind of, the idea behind opening that Charleston store then. Obviously, like you mentioned, it kind of goes back to your roots, but when did you open and kind of what was the why behind that?
So we opened that store in 2021, and it was really to lend credibility to the brand, so people could come in. Charleston is such a destination. There's so many tourists, and so it's such a great destination location. I think it's the number one wedding capital in America, or it goes back and forth, but it's often chosen as that. And so many people from so many different areas of the country are coming through Charleston. It seemed like a great place, and it's not too far from Atlanta, where our warehouse and home office is. So it was we wanted to kind of stay East Coast and
Yeah.
stay fairly close. But I think when you walk in and you can actually, there's a full blown kitchen in there, complete with the Smeg stove and fridge and all of our modular kitchen cabinets, which we do a lot of business with, on our design side of the business. It's set up so you walk in and there you could sit down and eat breakfast, and so we can do lots of wonderful events there. We have private parties, bridal showers are
Oh,
really
so
fun there,
cool.
wine tasting, charcuterie classes. So it's a kind of a very hands-on experience of the etúHOME sort of vision
Mhm.
and lifestyle. So it's a great place for people to learn more about us if they're interested, or to see our cabinets and uh, our furniture. There's a lot of furniture pieces in there as well.
That's
So
awesome. I need to go and visit sometime when you're having an event there. That it just sounds so fun. I'm curious. You have so many great products. So, what would you say is the best seller right now that your customers love? And then, what's your personal favorite? Like for someone listening, that you're like, this is my favorite. Go check it out. What would those be?
okay, so well, our best-selling category for sure is the charcuterie boards that
Mhm.
we've already discussed. But product-wise, one of our top sellers is our tablet cookbook holder. It's a great item. It holds like a tablet perfectly, or a cookbook, so it can live in your kitchen. It can. I'm sitting here in my office. I actually have one on my desk right now, and I use it for whatever is important in the moment as a desk stand. But so many people cook from their phone or their iPad, pull up a recipe, so it can live in your kitchen on your counter with your favorite cookbook, open or closed. And then it's so versatile that it's so utilitarian to actually just pop your iPad down there and follow your recipe. So I think it's just a beautiful piece, but it's also utilitarian and dual purpose. So I love when something's decorative but also usable
Yeah.
and functionable. So that's probably our number one seller. What do I love? So I would go to one of our found objects,
Okay.
which would our iconic dough bowl, our found dough bowls. We sell them in antique, true found ones, and from this big to like giant, jumbo, huge. Maybe it's a planter or something. And we also have them, they're hand hewn from one European hardwood, which is amazing to think that this came from one tree, basically. And so I love the found, but I also, on my, I guess, classic, more preppy side, I would say our colors are really fun, and they can range from pink to denim to navy to sage to whitewashed, and they're all food safe. So you can toss a Caesar salad. You can do, a wonderful, I think the other day my family was in town from overseas, and we made this wonderful watermelon, feta, arugula, basil. I can't even remember what else was in there, and tossed it in one of our bowls, and it just serves so pretty. We tossed it in a white bowl, and the pink watermelon. It's like, oh, we need this photo shooted.
Yeah, it really pops against, the colors, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm partial to that. There's so much history behind the whole concept of the dough bowl, and why it was created in the first place, and what it means. So I love the story there, and
Mhm.
it's truly the first product we started the company with. That was my number one, you know, piece, and
Yep.
we still sell it today to the exact same customers. So.
That's awesome. What about a dream customer? Like, if you could pick any celebrity, royal, influencer, whoever, like, who would you love to have your pieces in their home? Or do you think just epitomizes the brand?
Wow, that is a tough question. I do. Wow. So I suppose I'd love Katie Couric to try our product. I just think she's so family focused, and I love and so real.
Mhm.
So I love watching her, use things and do things in her kitchen, and I think she would so appreciate kind of the found concept, and the history, and the stories behind each piece, because she's a journalist. I majored in journalism,
Yeah.
so I'm partial to her, and I think sometimes, I mean, every single piece that we sell has a story, every piece. And the story is so real and interesting to me. And I find every time I share it, people are like, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, wow. Or even a story of how we found an object or an item, like our Italian chopping board. It was found in Italy, in Puglia, in this little tiny town. Puglia is the heel of the boot in
Yep.
Italy. And, my husband and I were down there sourcing some pottery, and we were eating in this little tiny little seaside village restaurant, and we were served some like an olive tapenade appetizer on this board, and we 3 hours later and a bottle of wine later, we're sitting down with the cafe owner, and we're talking about it, and I walked out with the board because I'm like, and we recreated it exactly the way it was meant to be. So I have the original, I own it, but I sell thousands of the replicated ones, and I just it's a heartwarming story for me. So I think that sometimes when people hear that, you can appreciate your piece a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, and I can tell you everything else about that piece another time.
I love it. She'd be a great customer. And I think she also loves, like, a pop of color. So I could see her with some of your colored pieces too. I really like that answer.
Right, yeah. And I can also see her hydrangeas in
Yeah.
our flower vase. It's another one of our best sellers, our color block flower vase, which comes in all the colors that you mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, because the color on the bottom hides all the little bits that fall off, the stems and the dirt and everything. So you never see it. You just see the vase and the beautiful blooms.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
so
I'll
I
have to
know she's
look at
a
that
great
product
seller.
later. Um, so since this is the Preppy podcast, I always ask everyone, what does Preppy mean to you? So how would you describe Preppy?
I think that's such a great question, and I think about that. I definitely went to I was a Southern school, but fraternities and sororities and the Greek system, and so all about the prep and the cable knit sweaters and the scallop skirts. But I see it as well. Clearly, I see like an Ivy League kind of thought process to it, but I see it as classic but colorful classic, like
Mhm.
brighter, funner, so classic with a twist, maybe. It's more playful, a little more relaxed. I don't know, maybe if can play tennis all day long and sip drinks on the sidewalk or in the gallery, then you are more relaxed. So I think just maybe a relaxed, fun, playful classic is
I
how I.
love that answer. That's perfect. I think that you are so great at entertaining with the products that you offer, and it sounds like just the lifestyle that you believe in. So I'd love if you could share a tip for entertaining with my listeners.
Okay. So, honestly, I think the most important thing about entertaining doesn't have anything to do with our product or our tablescapes or the way I would actually, set up my table or my island or display, food on, obviously I'm going to use my boards and my pottery. But I think that the greatest tip maybe for entertaining is that when people come into your home, they feel warmth and they feel comfortable and they feel that they were invited and that you for a reason that you want them there and you
Yeah.
want them to be part of your party, your dinner, your bridal shower, whatever you're hosting, that they feel warm and comfortable in your home. And
Mhm.
and I always want people to feel that I'm glad that you came, and I think that's to me the most important part of entertaining. But
Yep.
maybe it's trivial,
No,
but I think it's important.
that's very well put. So normally at this point, I ask you, what's next? So what's a sneak peek? What do you have coming up? But listeners can go and see that actually on the video that we recorded at Market. We walk through a bunch of the new products that you guys are going to be releasing in the next couple of months. So I'm going to tell listeners to go and watch that video next, because that has all of the sneak peeks and so many exciting things, including lots of Christmas and holiday and some darker shades of wood we went through even in that video. So definitely check that out. So my final question will be, where can people find you? Let them know your website, your social media handles, anything like that. That way they can shop, they can check it out, learn more about the brand.
Wonderful. Yes. So it's etúHOME.com. It's ETU. Home.com. And obviously, we have our Charleston location if anybody's there, but also online. So everything pretty much is online. You can buy it there. Our Instagram is the same, as far as follow us at etúHOME. And we're constantly, sometimes it's great if you follow us because you'll hear about if we have specials, if we have sales, or if we have just limited editions. We have a lot of limited runs, limited one of a kinds and found objects. And so that's a great place to know about them first because those little limited bits, they do run out. They do sell out. They're meant to sell out, but they're special purchases. So you'll hear about that if you follow us. And our email, if you subscribe to our email list, that's also probably the best way. You can get an email as many times as you want each week, and you'll definitely hear about new and specials. So I like specials, and we know our customers do too. So that's the best way.
Definitely. And they can sign up for the newsletter on your website then as well,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. This was so fun learning more about you and your business. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time, Patricia. You were so fun to have in the showroom and to take you around. And I loved, seeing your excitement over the new items. So that was great for us to also get your reaction. So thank you so much for having me and for, you know, um, for enjoying our brand. We really appreciate it.
Definitely. Hey, so we're going to start with the boards because I love the story about how you guys got started, and it all started with the board. Is that correct?
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about the boards and how you guys got started in bringing charcuterie to America.
Okay, great. So etúHOME, the company is about 20 years old, and around 2008, we uncovered a huge supply of German, what we call pizza boards, but technically charcuterie boards. And it's a found object, so it's literally sourced village to village, door to door, and we sold out. We kept sourcing more, but we literally kept selling out. So we invested in a factory in Europe where we started to recreate the concept.
Yeah.
And I think Jess can tell you a little bit more about how the boards are made and why we chose Europe to do it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this, Jessica.
So one of the nice things about recreating the board is we were able to tap into another customer segment that were people that weren't familiar with the found concepts. We were able to standardize the boards. They are all food safe, USDA tested, and they still have a unique appeal because they are made from sustainably sourced European pine. So you still can see the beautiful wood grain. Each board is unique in itself, but the size, shape, and color was standard.
Perfect. Oh yeah, this one's really cool because you can see how they replaced some of the broken pieces.
One thing that's important that many people don't understand is wood needs to be nourished, and it needs to be nourished often. It's a natural material, it was alive. And so wood expands and contracts with the elements. So we recommend our etúHOME board wax. You can use any kind of wax, but this is a natural beeswax, and it rubs on the board. It's actually wonderful. It smells amazing.
Yeah.
It's our famous Aix-en-Provence scent, and we highly recommend this to keep your boards from warping and to keep them nourished. We also have the little utensil wax, which is fun because you can rub it on your board like this, and then I can rub it in with my hand, and it's amazing. It's all natural, or it can be used to care for your utensils. And we sell a range of wood utensils that we love. So a little bit about our newest collection, which we're calling our Scallop collection, or our tennis prep or tennis score. So this is a solid oak board. Right here, I'm actually using it as a charger, and I've got a little mini serving plate on top of it, and I might add my dipping bowl.
Cool.
But the idea is that it can be multifunctional, so you can use it to serve on, you can use it to chop on, or you can use it to prepare. We've got multiple variety here. There's a short board, a beautiful long plank, which I love to do cheeses and dipping bowls, and then a really substantial cutting board that, for me, this would live on my counter. It would never leave.
Yeah.
But what I love, and I'm so excited about, and I want you to know, Patricia, you're the first person to see it.
Yay!
Okay? It's brand new. And this is our holiday collection.
So cool.
It's a limited edition, 2 sizes of our tree board. And this is where I would go all out with my charcuterie.
Yeah.
So I would take my dipping bowls, and I would alternate. I might do a mini plate here. I've got wonderful little dipping spoons. And frankly, I do it in green. So I would,
No. Come over here, yeah.
I would go like this.
Oh, I love that.
And I would do olives, and I would do nuts, and I would surround it with rows of fun charcuterie. But I love the board, and I love that it also stands.
I think that's cool. I could see it on a mantle.
Right? Doesn't that be great? And it's
So
really
cool.
substantial. It's forever, and it's very, very limited. So we, on purpose, only made a small amount.
So you got to get it when it launches.
We kind of do.
Yeah.
Collection for us, and it's our grain sack collection. And we're really excited about it because normally grain sacks, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they are typically this width.
Yeah.
And the grain sack, the short story is the farmer took his grain to the mill, and at the end of the day, he would pick it up, and his grain sack was always defined by the number of stripes or the color. So Mr. Smith might have 3 blue stripes, and Mr. Jones might have 2 red stripes. But in order to use grain sack, it's very difficult because it was a useful, usable item every day, and they were typically stained and dirty.
Yeah.
Luckily, we uncovered a very old factory from the 50s that had just been shut down, and inside were bolts and bolts and bolts of unused 1950s grain sack fabric. So from these old found bolts, we are making runners, which we have on our tables. We're making placemats, which are really fun because they're double-sided. And then, of course, we're making Christmas stockings in blue and red, and these awesome trees. So they come on a great metal stand, and it's just something that is very sustainable because you can pull it out year after year. I do mine with twinkly lights, which is a lot of fun. So just something really different, nostalgic, warm, party, and
very New England to
exciting.
me. It's like coastal New England. I could see this style. It's so pretty and preppy.
Yes. When people want to wash their boards.